right, this morning we have something a little bit different. Pioneer PL570. This is the first one that I've ever actually seen. Other than in pictures, it's the first one that I've had to service. So this was kind of, I don't know, I was kind of excited when I got this one because I'd never wrenched on one of these before. So this is the Pioneer PL570 quartz lock turntable, manufactured, and this may not be 100% accurate. I found on Hi-Fi Engine manufactured between 1977 and 1978, so it looks like maybe a limited run. It could be as early as 76, could be as late as 78, I don't know. It's a fully automatic turntable. It's a quartz locked direct drive turntable with manual pitch control. If you want to run it with manual speed adjustments, you can do that. The dimensions were flashed. It's kind of a large turntable, reminiscent of the other turntables that Pioneer was selling at the time, and I'll get into that in a minute. So this was the top of the line turntable, as far as I could tell, for 1977. Now, if these were indeed sold in 1978, they were being phased out for the more modern looking and computerized and chip controlled turntables like the Pioneer PL610 and the PL630. And these kind of served as a bridge between the traditional direct drive turntables like the 530, right, to where we went to more quartz lock and computer controlled turntables in the late 70s going into early 80. In 1977, there were 3 tiers of turntables, at least as far as I could tell. You had the quartz lock tables, the Pioneer PL570 and 550. Again, I've never seen a 550. This was the first 570. You had the direct drive tier of tables, so that included the PL530 fully automatic and the 510A manual. And then you had the belt drive tables, the 117D, 115D, and 112D. So 3 different tiers. So this would have been top of the line. Now that may not include some like, Japanese domestic turntables or something else they were selling at the time, but according to what I saw, this was it. This was the pinnacle of their turntable line in 1977. Aesthetically, as mentioned earlier, it's about the same size as a Pioneer PL530. It might be a little bit larger. I think it's a good looking turntable. I think it looks better than the PL530. As far as I can tell, it uses a higher quality veneer than the PL530, but I don't know that to be the case. I'm only going by what I can observe on this table and the images that I have seen for the tables that have either been sold or are being sold on eBay. PL530s have tissue paper veneer and it just comes off and you can see it in all of the photos and all of the images, and I've seen it up close, and I re-veneered one, and that was the subject of a video. When I was doing the pricing information for the 570, none of the tables listed as either sold or for sale on eBay had that issue. So I'm going to say it's probably using a higher quality veneer, probably a thicker veneer, but I can't say that for sure. Operation, it's easy. It's easy to use. So I'm going to come over here. Excuse my flash there and my reflection. So you do have a speed indicator, which, I like on turntables, whether they're, direct drive or quartz lock or even just, fully belt drive manual. I like that. It does have a virtual or a VTA adjustment, right? Virtual. Sorry, I was just doing some work. So it has VTA adjustment, so you can raise or lower the tone arm. It has a traditional VTF adjustment, so vertical or tracking force adjustment. It does have this lateral weight. It does have anti-skate. I believe it's magnetic. It could be spring, but I believe it's magnetic. It has a manual tone arm elevator, right? Cueing arm. You can go from 1725 to 30 for record size. There is a manual speed adjustment if you turn the quartz lock off. The quartz lock on this happens to be on. You just turn it off, right, by releasing that button. You have a repeat function, a stop button, and a start button. You have 45 and 33 for the speed controls. And I believe that's it. I mean, it's pretty basic. You just, to get it started, you hit start. Now, this can be a not a fully manual turntable, but you don't always have to hit start. You can just move the tone arm over. It kicks on, plays the record, and then returns. What I don't see on this, though, sometimes you can defeat all of the auto functions and you can just make it manual. This one does not have that option. So it's either start, stop, or just move the tone arm. But at the end of the record, the tone arm is going to return. I don't know of a way to turn the auto return off on this. But if there is a way, it's sure not intuitive. Pretty sure this is full auto. Serviceability, I would say intermediate. Now, I did have to perform a service on this. There is a video on this. I didn't have to do any major surgery on it. It was a very minor repair, kind of a quick repair. But just looking over the internals, I would say if you really had to get into this to troubleshoot a logic issue or something like that, it would probably cause you some grief, put it to you that way. It might be a tough one. So I would say intermediate, lots of moving parts and pieces, lots of logic in there. Common issues. So I have a very limited experience, as I said, with the 570. So before the owner even brought it to me, I was just doing some independent research to try to figure out, what some common problems on this were, because, the owner said, hey, here's what it's not doing. And then I researched what might cause those issues. What I found was, well, number one, typical hardened grease. So they all use this really thick grease and it hardens after a while and it gets sticky after a while. So you have that going for you. You also have a motor issue that may present itself for the tone arm mechanism. So the tone arm motor is a two-part motor. There's a motor and there's a gearbox. So you've got the motor, you've got the gearbox. You can separate the motor from the gearbox, right? The reason why you might have to do that, or you would probably have to do that, is there's a gear inside the gearbox, and Pioneer used that white nylon plastic material for the gears that after a while will shrink and crack. It's not very durable. Turntable Guy had a really good video on going into the gearbox. If I think about it, I'll flash it up when I go to edit the video, but it was very informative. I watched his video on this just to see, what I might be encountering, given the symptoms that the owner gave me. So you have the gearbox issue, then you actually have the motors failing. So this motor is, I don't think they're very robust motors. The cool thing is you can buy modern replacements for them, so that's neat. But I think the motors are prone to failure. I don't think it's just the gearbox. I think it's the motor itself. When I looked at the motor on this one, not the gearbox, because the gearbox seemed to work okay, but the motor, it didn't look like it would be easy to get into it and repair it. I think Turntable Guy did. I think he got into his. But, you can break into it and you can probably clean it and it will, take you a while. But I think new motors for these are like $50. So it's kind of a thing where if the motor were to fail on this, I would just buy a new motor, right? And I even talked to the owner about that. I said, I got it working. It's working fine. I think your motor's, it's probably on its way out. We can replace it now, or you can just see how long it's going to run, right, before you have to replace the motor. And the owner opted to just wait. And, that's more or less what I advise them to do. But if you had to go in there and just, again, if you had a motor issue, it'd be easier just to replace the motor, assuming the gearbox attached to it was good. Right, so motors, big issue on these. You also have probably the potential of some failing ICs. I didn't even really look at this to see if it has ICs. I'm sure it does. There are lots of capacitors, there are lots of boards, lots of stuff going on underneath this. If I think of it, I will flash an image up of the service video where I'm underneath and you can kind of see the layout. But I'm sure there are some ICs in there. So those could cause you issues as well, because once an IC fails, unless you buy a new old stock one or one from a parts unit that you don't really know whether it's working or not, right? You may have something that's not repairable without that new IC. So what are some things to look for if you are considering picking one of these up? Number one, I would say functionality. So examine the listing on eBay, see what the description says, right? Because 4 parts are not working or untested. You know, not being able to test one of these is, I think, probably misleading. To test for sound, sure, you may not be set up to plug this into a device and listen to it. But you can sure as heck plug it in and hit start and see if the tone arm moves. See if the motor spins, right? See if the platter spins. See if you hear anything. So I would be very, very, very careful. I would ask questions about the functionality. That's probably primarily what would scare me off from this turntable. Does the tone arm move? Because at a minimum, it's probably a bad gear in the gearbox. And I think there are 3D printed gears that you can purchase on eBay. So that may be easily resolvable, but it could also be an integrated circuit, right? So if it's just the tone arm not moving, okay, right? If the platter's not spinning, okay, you may have a larger issue, especially if it's on quartz lock. So just lots of things to consider on this. Look at the images. Look at when it's running. Is it running with the quartz lock button in or with the quartz lock button out? Because that may be an indicator that there may be some additional issues. So functionality and then completeness. Veneer, dust cover. Does it have the slip mat? Does it have the head shell? Does it have all the knobs and buttons? Does it have the stand? Does it have the counterweight? You know, feet, all of those types of things. Make sure it has all of that stuff. So functionality, completeness, condition of the dust cover, all of those types of things is what I would look out for. Prices on these are crazy. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. So when I went to do the pricing for this, and I don't know when I go to edit the video if this will be out there, but the first thing I did is I went to active listings and I saw a listing for like $1,800 and I was like, oh man, that's a crazy amount for this. And then I went to the sold listings and I realized that is not a crazy amount for one of these. So to get one of these, in fact, I don't know if it's going to be out there when I go to edit this video, but one of these sold for $2,600. Not a best offer, it was $2,600. Now it was in the box and it claimed, the seller claimed that it was unused, like new old stock, but $2,600. The ones that I saw that were serviced, maybe recapped, reconditioned, in perfect shape, they were selling for $1,500 or more. And they were really closer to that $1,800 mark. Now, I will say that there weren't many sales. So when I say, you know, $1,800 for like a museum quality piece, I'm going by like 6 sales. So I think that's probably a little high. I may be completely wrong though. It may be worth every penny of $1,800. That may just be what the market, right, is demanding for these. So I'm going to err on the side of the sellers today. Normally I don't, but I'm going to say one of these museum quality, serviced, working, everything's dialed in, everything works, recapped, all that stuff, $1,800 or more. One in working condition. So one like this, right? It's not perfect. It's been serviced, but it hasn't been reconditioned, recapped, restored. The motor has not been replaced. The gears in the gearbox have not been replaced, so they're going to probably fail at some point. The dust cover is not in the best shape. It's been used. The veneer is all intact, right? It's not perfect though. About $1,000. And I saw a spread all the way from $800 to $1,200 for turntables that were working. Not restored, not repaired, not serviced, but just working turntables. Parts, I only found one, and it wasn't actually sold as a 4 parts or not working unit. It was missing the dust cover, I believe. And that sold for $400. But I could see probably you might go as high as 5 or 6 on one of these, depending upon what's wrong, right? Depending upon what the description is. But I'm gonna say $400 for one of these. Like, and when I answered that question, or when I described the pricing for parts units, I think about what I would pay, and again, it's in Omaha, Nebraska, and how much would I be willing to risk, right, on this turntable to receive it broken or missing some parts and pieces and have to put money into it, right, to get to the shop to sell, right, and then have the shop owner make a little bit of money and me make a little bit of money. Now, if I just always wanted a 570, I might pay $600 and then sort it out. But for me, because my intent is different with these, I tend to go a little bit lower. So I personally would stick around, $400 or less to pick one of these up. They are great turntables. I would take one of these over a 530 just aesthetically, right? Any day of the week, I do need to clean this dust cover off a little bit more. But I think they're good. It's a good looking turntable. It's a good looking turntable. It's, I don't know. The operation I think the operation of the tone arm is smoother. It reminds me more of the PL630 than the PL530. The 530, if you watch my video where I reviewed one, I think the way I described it was clunky. This is not clunky. It's just like the 610 or the 630. It's smooth. It's the motor's a little bit noisy. I don't know if it shares the same motor as the 630 or not. But it's just, they're beautiful turntables. I would have no problem running one of these. This has to go back to its owner, who was the original owner, by the way. So that's kind of cool. I believe it was the original owner. So this will be returned to the owner. In fact, today they're going to come and get it. So I think that'll wrap it up on the review for the Pioneer PL570. Nice turntable. Good looking turntable. Nice functioning turntable. If you see one at a good price, don't pass it up. Just be aware that there may be some gremlins and some things that you have to sort out on. So as always, if you like what you see, hit like, hit subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video.